County they can for now. LA and Ventura.
Yeah, I know. She had another MASP. Like,
Yeah, right now we're still
Yeah.
and everybody's been vaccinated, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like everybody that's.
But it doesn't even mean anything anymore.
Nope, I'm going to next year. My wife had it bad.
Okay.
I tried to get it and couldn't.
Really?
You tried to get.
I've been around 5 people. Yeah, she was with a group of people, and they all got it.
Hey, wow. Okay.
And I said, you know what? I'm not going to get the vaccine. I'm not going to.
Has one more.
I can share with Scott.
I'll just suck it up. I couldn't get it. So I've got an appointment on the 29th to go in and get tested for antibodies.
Where are you going, if I may ask? Okay. I've been trying to figure out how to do that. Never have any great answers.
Yeah, the only time I did I went and donated blood at Red Cross, but they were only doing it till the end of June. Because I went actually before my vaccine, and I had 0 antibodies. And then when I got the vaccine, I went and did it again, donated blood again, and I had the antibodies. So it was there. It did show up because of having the vaccine.
Right. And I hear if you have it and recover, it's like superior antibodies.
Yeah.
The vaccine ones.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, sure.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing?
Hey, Bill.
Hey.
When are you going to fly back to Alaska?
Tiger. Planning on if whether
Get 180 horse?
Oh yeah. Yes, it is 135.
It ain't going. It's coming.
Yeah, well.
Especially in the winter.
Well, I really want to get there. I don't know about it.
Yeah.
It's heat keeper, that's what I just say.
I bought a Mooney once in Tennessee and flew back. It took 4 days. And I swear those trucks on the freeway below me were going faster than I was.
I flew
60-mile-an-hour headwind all the way.
Flew a J3 from South Carolina on home.
You are flying backwards?
G3?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the one got my hangar. I bought it in South Carolina.
Not a G, a J.
I got it then. I thought you said G3.
Oh, gosh, no. How much money do you think I do?
I know, you're my new best friend.
That's good. Goodness.
Oh, Lord.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, I got a minute here.
Have the PowerPoint on here. They've already had it. Oh, they do? Okay, can they show it?
Yeah.
They'll show it. They're going to show it. They'll be up there. You'll speak in. The only thing you will have to say next slide or.
They're going to roll it out.
It's not me.
It's Jimmy.
It's Jimmy, yeah.
I'm sorry,
You gotta push continue. Not leave me.
I thought too. And I'm like, oh, continue. And then I looked up and I'm like, oh, yep, that's Jim.
How you doing, Bob?
Good, how are you?
Okay. Good.
I was stalling while I unmuted.
All right. The Board of Directors meeting of the Mojave Air and Spaceport, July 20th, 2021 will come to order. Would we all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? Would you like to
Yeah, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay. Little 3-second pause for
I know. I can't have put a box over. Okay, roll call. Director Barney?
Here.
Director Coleman?
Here.
Director Morgan?
Here.
I know you're here. Director Deaver?
Here.
And Director Ballantyne here. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
First on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Deaver, second by Director Coleman. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
and roll call. Sorry, I got to do roll call. Director Barney?
Aye.
Director Coleman?
Aye.
Director Morgan?
Aye.
Director Deaver?
Aye.
And Director Ballantyne? Aye. Agenda's approved. Community announcements. Any members of the audience have any announcements regarding community events? None being. Next item is consent calendar. We have the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 6th this year. And item B, a check register dated July 15th, 2021 for $2,234,709.73. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion by Director Barney.
Second. Deaver.
Second by Director Deaver. Are there any questions on the consent calendar? None being. Roll call. Director Barney.
Aye.
Director Coleman.
Aye.
Director Morgan.
Aye.
Director Deaver.
Aye.
And Director Ballantyne. Aye. Consent agenda is approved. Action items. Call per unfunded liability.
Rodini.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is the CalPERS unfunded liability payment. This is a payment that CalPERS has put us on a schedule to clear up our pension unfunded liability. At one point, we did have 4 classifications of employees, but now that we don't have the safety, we only have 2. But we do still have some unfunded liability that we have to make payments. CalPERS gives us the option to make a one-time payment rather than the monthly payments, and it'll save us $15,000. So in this, I'm just asking for the approval for a one-time payment of $446,075 to CalPERS. This was a budgeted amount in our budget.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve
One
the...
question. Is that for 6 months, you said?
This is for the year.
For the
Yeah, so
it's
Yeah.
12 per month.
Yeah. So and then with the interest that they want us to pay, so
Right.
yeah, if we pay it at one time, we'll actually save $15,000.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Chuck. And a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Director Coleman, a second by Director Barney. Any questions? None being, roll call vote. Director Barney?
Aye.
Director Coleman?
Aye.
Director Morgan?
Aye.
Director Deaver?
Aye.
And Director Ballantyne. Aye. All PERS unfunded liability payment for $446,075 is approved. Next we have reports. CEO, Todd?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to be with you all today. On the heels of what Carrie said, one thing that wasn't in my report that we found out this morning, actually, reviewing the numbers, it appears that for fiscal year 2020, we finished the year, I think, right at 26% above projected revenues, and our expenses were about 4% less than what's projected.
Hold on quick. I think it's putting pictures up for
Okay, that's not me doing
the
that.
report.
No,
We
it's
didn't do
not.
that. Thank you.
No, it's-
So I seen his face. I was like,
So that's good news. On GA pavement rehabilitation, they started doing the geotech and the surveying work. Actually, yesterday that will go through for about a week to the 26th. GA hangar improvements, down in the GA area, this is a picture of the concrete where the mailboxes will be established. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. A little help here.
Trying.
We have the new talk box. As you can see, there's a button there that you'll push, and the wiring is completed. When you push that button, it will ring Miss Nicole Altman's office. If she, for whatever reason, is not there or does not answer it, number one, she'll have a monitor there that she'll be looking at as well. If for some reason that she is unavailable to answer that call, or if she is not there, the system is set to where it'll start ringing everyone else in the building. So somebody will receive the call, be able to respond, and let the folks in, or deny the folks if somebody we don't want to come in. But this will be good to use to work with our package delivery folks and things of that nature.
Quick question, if I could.
Yes, sir.
If we have a friend that is about to just show up in that, can they just say they're get in the gate, or do we have to escort them through?
At this very time,
Yeah.
At this very time, the way the system is set up,
Okay.
yes. In the future, not too distant future,
Okay.
probably won't be able to do that. They'll need to be escorted.
Okay. That's what I'm doing now, but
Yes.
curious if that changed that.
Yeah, that's part of we've been talking about security procedures and stuff that's in the approved policies. That's one of those items that's currently not approved but being practiced.
Okay.
So that's another topic that we'll be talking about.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Is this a 24-hour day type event, weekends, nights?
It will not be 24 hours a day. Well, right this second, it is while people are here in the administration building.
Mm-hmm.
One of the calls also goes to security.
Okay.
So considering we have security here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, yes, they will get in. On the weekends, of course, it's going to probably take a little bit longer because that system is going to have to go through the process of ringing each.
Okay, I was just thinking package deliveries like on Saturday
Right.
or something.
Exactly.
If somebody's going to be able to answer it.
Yeah.
Just, in other words, maybe hours of operation.
Yeah, definitely.
And pushing the button and.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, to tell you the honest truth, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I was more concerned at the time I was wrapped around the axle about making sure that somebody answered the calls, especially Monday through Friday. But you bring up a good point, and we will definitely address that issue. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, make a quick note of that.
Todd, I have a question.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
So if you look at that call box,
Hang on, Jason. Bob's talking. Go ahead, Bob.
How does a delivery person get back out?
Whenever they pull up, there's another one being arranged on the other side, or we're also considering putting it in a wait where they'll pull up on it to get people out.
Okay.
That will trip the gate.
Thank you.
The wait things.
Jason, go ahead. Did you have something to add?
yeah, so if you look at this call box, if you can see it, there's two buttons on there. One will be for hours of operation, the other will be for 24-hour. That second button goes straight to security. The lower portion of that box is going to have signage to state all that information. And there is going to be identical units on the exit side to also allow people to exit the same fashion they entered.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Jason.
So one more question. Is there a camera involved? Okay.
Yes, if you look in the center of that box, that little dot in the center of the whole unit is a camera.
All right. So they would, for instance, a delivery driver would have to show some sort of ID, or you just recognize the vehicle?
So in Nicole's office, there's a monitor the monitor is reflecting what that camera is showing. So we're looking for positive identification of the vehicle, the individual, whatever that may be.
Okay. I'm good. I'm sure it'll be fine-tuned.
That's all good questions, definitely. Appreciate the input. For GA Hangar development, go ahead to the next slide. we're continuing to work with ClearSun. We're continuing to work with a couple other developers on the hangars. One of the issues that we're addressing right now as it relates to the pavement itself is a lot of these crevices. One of the things we've realized is we're not going to be able to wait until the design is complete and we go to apply for funding from FAA to do this project. We're going to have to address some of these issues like this one here as soon as possible. So I tell you all that to say we're working with maintenance right now to go ahead and start putting a hot patch and getting it packed down and paved over. FAA would not give us permission to use the product that was remaining from the Taxiway Charlie project. I found that very surprising. But yeah. They are going to force us to wait. So, and I told them we can't wait. So, more to come. This is actually started. We're starting this week. So,
and he requested to take that picture. I didn't prompt him on him. And I have another one because it's Oshkosh week, and I have a sport aviation. So that's good that it came up. Yeah.
If I'd known you had that check, I would have requested that one.
That's better. I like that one. That gets the point.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going with that cost.
This has been a many-year battle, and you're making it happen.
Well, it needs to be done. Period. I mean, I wouldn't want to taxi my airplane through there. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. On the Virgin Galactic, we enjoyed a successful Virgin Galactic operation last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago. Mr. Branson went into space. This morning, we had Jeff Bezos go into space. Yep. So the battle of the billionaires continues.
Started in Mojave.
It all started right here.
Paul Allen's the billionaire that won 17 years ago.
That's true. Very true.
But I got a Burt Rutan email that says that.
Yeah.
Paul Allen won the billionaire battle.
Well,
yep.
Go ahead and go to the next. There you go, right there. So, next item on my report is we're wrapping up the airspace letter of agreement with FAA and the folks at Edwards to incorporate some new instrument approaches and one actually SID, standard or instrument departure. The approaches, this is RNAV, GPS, LPV for runway 30. The next slide, go ahead, next slide. This is GPS for runway 26. And the last slide is the Glazy 1 departure off of runway 12. The runway 26 approach will take you down to about, I think it's 700 feet. The LPV for runway 30 will take you down to 200 feet, 200 and a half. Just, it can't be considered cannot be considered a precision approach because it's not an ILS, but it does provide you both vertical and horizontal guidance and takes you down to 200 feet. Half mile visibility, that's great. Next slide, please. We enjoyed a great weekend at Plane Crazy with Kathy and all the folks who came out, including these children. They were treated to a tour of our fire capabilities with Chief Damien Farrar. Go ahead and go to the next slide. He spent a lot of time with the kids. They did a lot of things. It was even entertaining for myself. So, big shout out to Chief Farrar taking his time to do that.
I lost sound. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, well now I can hear you.
One second for those of you that are still on the line. I'm trying to get a hold of Jason.
Representative Obernolte, we've made him very clear on our needs as it relates to participation by the federal government, infrastructure development in particular. He is going to, and he's on the Science and Transportation Committee, he's going to work with Representative McCarthy and try to get a lot of our needs elevated on their priority list to help us to get some additional funding. We had a very positive meeting yesterday with a party who is interested in establishing a fixed base operation here at Mojave. Like I said, there's not a lot of details I can give you right here, right now. They're still collecting some data and information, but is looking very positive, and more to follow. Next slide, please, Jason, if you're back in your office. There we go. So one of the items we've been working on the last couple of weeks in particular with Johannes Loxkin gig is the response to an RFI we received from CalSpan. CalSpan has a trisonic wind tunnel that they're trying to locate somewhere out west, and it is a Mach 4 wind tunnel. So my question to CalSpan and others was, why do we want a Mach 4 wind tunnel when the United States government is making every effort they can to develop hypersonic vehicles? You know, so we're going to be testing stuff that's going Mach 4 when the government wants to be going Mach 5. It doesn't make sense to me. Well, talking to the folks at the Naval Postgraduate School, they made it very clear that we have the technology today to travel hypersonic. The issue is not traveling hypersonic. The issue is transitioning from sub-hypersonic speeds, like 3.5 Mach to Mach 5. And it was made very clear that that's the capabilities that are needed at this point in time. So with that said, we've responded to the RFI. We're looking to hear from the folks at CalSpan within the next 24 to 48 hours, letting us know when we should start preparing a formal proposal for this facility. There's a lot of moving parts to this, a lot of economic development folks are involved. The question that we're talking about internally right now is how much local investment do we make, if any? And I say local, I'm talking about from us, Mojave in particular. That's going to be a conversation we'll probably have in the next month or so as we continue to start to develop this proposal back to them. Scaled composites, operating letter of agreement. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Jason. So this slide actually has nothing to do with scaled composites, but scaled composites, we're currently in the middle of negotiating their new letter of agreement for airspace, use of airspace. They've got a program that they're getting ready to start. Their letter of agreement for utilizing the airspace for special purposes has expired. So I'll be working with Mr. Nave on that and several others to address that issue. Aircraft display, we're currently waiting on some information from structural engineers who are preparing some drawings and data that will allow us to hang the two Long-EZs that are in hangar 937 in the event center. We have found out that the Rocket EZ, the owner will not allow us to do that, so they're probably going to be taking the aircraft back, and which is fine with us. The reason I had this slide for the reason I put our mission on there is one of the things we've been reviewing internally is our mission statement. Not from the perspective of reviewing it because we want to change it, but reviewing it because we need to confirm and make sure that anytime we do something, when we're taking part in an activity or when we are addressing an issue or we are spending the organization's time to conduct some type of activity, it needs to be focused on or tied back to accomplishing our mission. So in having these conversations, one of the things that came up was organization. So we've went through and we've started to conduct or complete a reorganization of our organization. Go ahead and go to the next slide. When I say reorganization, that's exactly or literally what we're talking about. This involves no removal of any positions, no addition of any positions, no change of anybody's title, no change in anybody's salaries, no change in salary ranges, nothing of that, nothing. This is literally just taking people and moving them around where we have the capability to operate in a more flexible and efficient manner. This allows me to spend more time pursuing funds with the state and federal organizations, working with the economic development folks. And it also empowers Carrie as our Director of Administration and Matt as our Director of Operations to make decisions as need to be made to certain levels on a regular basis. This type and this level of reorganization doesn't require approval from the board. That's why it's not an action item. I did want to bring it to your attention, and I'll be glad to take any of y'all's feedback and any input, of course, obviously, and implement that. But this really better demonstrates actually the way the activities operate on a day-to-day basis anyhow. Are there any questions about that?
Yeah, it looks like the majority of the people in the lower right don't report to anyone above them.
The people in the lower right,
Report to the Director of Ops.
they report to the Director of Operations. The line, I don't know why, I agree, I don't see the line either, Bob.
Yeah, it makes sense if you do the line.
The line, I don't know where the line went.
Okay,
but
so could you explain where it would be if it was there?
the line would go straight up from the line that connects the Chief of Security and the facilities. That line that runs across there, it would go straight up from there to Director of Operations.
Okay, thank you.
And the Director of Technology that should be a dash line connecting him to basically everyone else. And what the purpose of that is Jason, our Director of Technology, is always doing things that he's always doing things that we're always striving to understand how they occur. We know what needs to happen. We know what wants to happen, but typically he's the only one who knows how to make that happen. So that's why he is not under anyone specifically other than myself. And that's the purpose. Thank you for catching that, Bob. I didn't even notice it. For no other questions, we had a very good meeting last week with Lorelei Oliot. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yes.
Who's the Director of Planning for Kern County. She is an incredible woman. This was my first meeting with her, and everybody told me how awesome she is. But I'd never had the opportunity to meet her face to face. And so in doing so, I was talking to her about our electricity and utility, the situation here, and that we're going to have a need for a significantly higher level of megawatts in the future. And we was talking about electricity, and one of the things she said, you need to focus on microgrids, a microgrid. I'm like, a microgrid? I'm like, okay, I've heard of this. I said, I've had some meetings with people, but I'm not sure what microgrid, She goes, who are you working with? I said, and it just so happens I'd met with Blair Pruitt and Amy Tomlinson and Fred Nelson previously, who introduced me to microgrids. And she said, who are you working with? I said, I've been doing this work with Concentric Power. She goes, great. She goes, stick with Concentric Power. They won't lead you astray. Good bunch of people, and you need to focus on them if you can. So, with that said, we've continued having meetings with Concentric Power, and they have some information they want to share with y'all today. And I'm sure y'all will have questions that I cannot answer, but I'm sure they can. So, without further ado, Mr. Fred Nelson, take it away.
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing us to come.
I'm in a meeting. Need to call back in about an hour.
So we'll go through things relatively quickly. I'll pass out both of it, and don't be overwhelmed by the 45 pages there. We're not going to go through all of those. Just going to go through the beginning just to kind of set the stage of who we are and what our desires are to help Hobby with. And I'm going to go through just kind of setting the stage, and then we're going to go through some case studies so you can kind of see some examples of what we've done in other communities and other type campus environments, so you can see that this isn't just a bunch of whiteboard figures, that we actually do this. Go ahead and go to the next slide. But the main thing that we wanted to focus on was no matter what we talk to Mojave about is your power must be resilient, reliable, and be renewable, because that's kind of where all the focus is going. And even though now it's more of a buzzword, as the future goes on, we're going to have a lot of mandates. And everyone's scrambling to, well, how are we going to comply? Well, that's what we're kind of here to help offer in our services. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So these are some of the problems that Concentric, is that all there? Yeah. That we are normally asked to help companies with. Brownouts, we're now getting into fire season. One of the reasons why we were a few minutes tardy getting here, coming over 58, there was a couple of fires that look like they're just getting started towards Paiute Mountains. It might be in Havilah. It's hard to tell where the smoke's coming from, but the highway patrol is slowing everything down. Now, here in Mojave, you don't have to worry about too much of wildfires, but the surrounding areas do affect you with brownouts and blackouts. And blackouts are inconvenient, but if you have sensitive equipment, it can be catastrophic. It can destroy sensitive equipment. And brownouts too. If brownouts come your way, you may not get clean power. If you're running robotics or sensitive IT equipment, that can really have a devastating effect. If you're testing rockets, if you're doing something very sensitive, now you're talking about risk. And what we're talking about, going with your own microgrid, you eliminate things, you mitigate those risks. So that's what we are asked to come in and do. A lot of times they cannot rely on the utilities that are there, especially here in the recent future because of financial constraints. They're unable to build more robustness, and they steal from Peter to pay Paul when they bring power. And unfortunately, we all suffer from that. And also the rising costs. And we've done an initial review of what your costs are. We were able to look at some of the admin buildings and those costs and those that are incorporated with, I guess, your rent and everything. And the one thing that continues to go up is the price of kilowatt that you're paying. And it can be anywhere from 9 to 23%. It just depends year by year. It's not even something that you can count on, or it's even escalating field. It just, every year they tell you what it's going to be. Or what they just did to us last week, we just heard that they're going to do an infrastructure bid. It was approved, and we're all going to have to pay extra on top of it. So those costs keep going up. But interesting enough, the cost of solar keeps going down. The cost of all these other inputs are getting less and less expensive. So now's the time, looking at your own power infrastructure. And that's what a lot of companies are asking us to do. There's also the pressure to lower your carbon footprint and those sort of things in compliance with new mandates that will be coming down the pipe. Next page, next slide. So what our desired outcome is here is that you understand, or you feel that we believe that we understand what your needs are, and we want to have a bit of a dialogue there and find out more. We've been learning a little bit from some of the preliminary work we've done, but we'd love to hear directly from you some of the sensitivities. Some of those things have come from the tenants as well. And also, we hope that you would decide to investigate our capabilities. And we're an open book. We would love to show you what we've done in the past and what we're able to do. And hopefully going forward, we would agree that we could talk to some of your tenants, again, to hear directly from them what their sensitivities are. It might be communications, it might be IT, it might be robotics, it might be, fragile equipment, and that sort of thing. Because when we come back with a proposal, we want to address all those things. Make sure that everybody's satisfied and it's a cost-effective solution, and it gives you the ability to scale and grow. We've been hearing a lot about your economic development opportunities. Well, if you don't have the power infrastructure to do that, you're going to be, fighting with one arm behind your back, and we want to totally arm you with everything you need for that. Next slide. And go ahead and click next slide. That should kind of start. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, well, there is a nice little animation. Go ahead and go back one slide. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So that's okay. But I do have a soft copy, and you can also see this on our website. But essentially, this kind of shows what a microgrid is and how it operates. There we go. Yeah, will that work? There we go. Okay, so what it illustrates is you need to have all these different sources of power coming in. You know, there's wind, there's solar. There is the utility. You are connected to the utility. You may or may not need it. You can see the switch. It's off right here. This is in island mode. This is what we can build for you. If you do need to access the utility, you can, but you don't need it. At different times when it's not sunny outside, the solar doesn't work for you. So you need to have battery backups. Well, what type of batteries? There's, you know, all kinds of different batteries out there, and that technology is rapidly changing, and it's difficult for consumers to stay on top of that. Then there's the opportunity for wind, and there's also natural gas generation for redundancy and backup. Well, when you bring all those together, it's kind of like an orchestra. You've got tubas, you've got strings, you've got pianos, you've got percussions, and if you study your piece of music in silos, you get pretty good at it. You come together, it'll sound okay, but it's not going to work optimally. What a microgrid does for you, especially an intelligent microgrid, which we specialize in, is not look at these on hourly, what should we be using when, or by the minute. It's sub-cycle, it's sub-second. So at every given time, we know what condition all of these assets are and what is the most economical and where we should be pulling power from. Or when something needs to be in service, it already is making adaptive decisions with artificial intelligence to know, okay, this gen set's going to go offline because it has to be worked on, so we're going to schedule that in. You won't have to worry about any of that. That'll all be done in the background. So what a microgrid is the brains of the operation. People can say, I've got solar, I even have some battery backup. That's not a microgrid. The microgrid has to have this type of intelligence in the background to manage it all for you. And it gets really, really important if you are connected to utilities and they throw you some dirty power. Who's going to stop that bad leg from coming in and damaging some of your equipment? And we will catch that. And that's why you have to have something that looks at it. It's such a finite view of every power coming in and out. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. And we'll just go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we'll do is we'll go through some of the projects, and the person who's a little more intimately involved with these, Amy Tomlinson, she's visiting from up north where our headquarters are. She's been working with most of these projects directly. For those of you who don't know Amy, we're very proud and happy to have her. She's a former Blue Angel, and so she knows a lot about aviation, not just microgrids, so she's in a good position to walk you through some of these projects.
Thank you. Awesome, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to running through some of these reference projects, and then, as Fred mentioned, just opening it up in the next couple of minutes to get your feedback and questions, and learn a little bit more about how one of these microgrids could help Mojave in its best form. So Concentric Power goes back. We've been in business for about 11 years. And I'd say the first 4 to 5 years was a lot of developing those brains of the microgrid. We have many patents and intellectual property around the controller that does all the smart artificial intelligence and machine learning that Fred was just talking about. And that is where the beginning of the company started, with doing a lot of computer work and putting together a platform for us to launch a business. And we've evolved into now going from the design, build, own, operate. And so you can oftentimes contract for engineering services where somebody will design you a microgrid, and then you have to find the people that will build it, and then you find different people that will operate it. And one of the things I love about our company is we do all of it, one-stop shop. So we will design it with you, get all the input. We're an EPC contractor, so we'll go ahead and build it, hire local workers to do that, and then we contract 30 years for maintenance for maintaining the system and any upgrades as needed. So next slide. I think the first one is, this one is at Taylor Farms up in Salinas. So we have 3 different locations. We're located in Bakersfield, in Salinas, and up in Campbell in the San Jose area. So in Salinas, we've been doing quite a bit of our work there, servicing ag and ag industrial facilities. So Taylor Farms processes tons and millions of dollars worth of lettuce through this facility that you see here. And at any given time, if PG&E turns the power out, they not only, can't operate during that window, oftentimes just a few hours of not keeping it at the proper temperature, they lose all that product. So millions of dollars down the drain. So investing in some sort of alternate, more reliable power situation was really important to them, and this went in 2017. So they have the solar. You can't see it because this is in the way, but maybe the guys on the computer can see it. But there's a huge wind turbine here at 1.8 megawatts for wind, and then this is a cogeneration concentric engine and refrigeration system that we installed. It's 2 megawatts there as well. The engine is able to use renewable gas. And so as soon as we can get our hands on a renewable gas source, which is coming every day closer and closer, then we'll make the switch to make that a renewable gas, and then you have a fully sustainable and renewable solution there at Taylor Farms. And this is their location in Gonzales. Next slide. A very similar unit went into Truleaf Farms up in San Juan Bautista. This one they did not do the solar yet, but they did do the cogen and some of the infrastructure. And we are in a phase 2 now where we're going to install carport solar and batteries to round out this microgrid system for them. They also, interestingly, have just one thing I would like to also let you know from a business standpoint. Fred mentioned it, you will connect to the utility as well for the purposes of just in case if you need to get power from the utility. In these 2 examples, our equipment doesn't cover their entire load, so they get some from Concentric and some from the utility. Certainly, we can design systems where Concentric would be planned to service 100% of the facility load. You would still want the utility as a backup. Most people would. But the real reason to interconnect with the utility is because when you're not using these assets, so Truly, for example, goes for 3 months down to El Centro during 3 to 4 months of the year, and this facility does next to nothing. And yet they still have these assets on site that they can run and sell the grid services and resource adequacy back into the grid, which PG&E desperately needs and will pay handsomely for. And so it's a revenue stream for them as a business. It's an energy business that they hadn't anticipated getting into, but it's been a positive surprise. Next. That's just a closer picture of the module that's at both locations. They're a pretty sleek design, and lots of work has gone into making sure that it can kind of blend in and it doesn't, it's not an eyesore. Next slide. This is in Arvin, in the Bakersfield area, and it is about 2 months from coming fully online. It's a full system. It has 3.6 megawatts of engines. Again, they're natural gas powered at the moment, but there's plans to convert them to renewable gas, a battery and solar. It's at a facility called Truleaf, it's all T's, Tasteful Selections. And they make the baby potatoes that we probably all bought and eat. And this is a very exciting facility. It's not too far from you. And again, it's been in construction for this most good part of this year and will come online in a couple of months. Next slide. And some more pictures of what's happening at it, people. And next. I won't go too much into this one. This is a ranch scale microgrid. I don't think it fully applies to Mojave exactly, but we are servicing ranches that are very large acreage where they're moving water around, which is very energy intensive. And so we put in the solar, and next is coming the battery and the engines in order to power all the deep wells and the pumps and the pumping stations. Next. Next. Next slide. And I'll spend a little bit of time on this one because I do think it's more of a holistic approach, and it's in the city of Gonzales. And so the first one I talked about was Taylor Farms. This is the roof of that building, the Taylor Farms building, and so I'm pointing to the one with all the solar on it, underneath the words CAISO interconnection. And Taylor is one of 5 big businesses that's located in this industrial park in Gonzales. There's also Braga and Del Monte, and they make all the canned peaches that I thought before, and lots of ag going on in this park, and the growth has stopped. The city was unable to bring in enough power to allow the development and the growth. And there are growers who want to put their facility in this huge open space here and build, 500,000 or 600,000 square foot facility, and the city did not have power to provide for them to do that. So they asked PG&E, of course, to meet the load, and the answer was in 5 to 7 years. And that wasn't a sufficient answer to their city manager, so they municipalized, became their own electric authority, went out to, this is a 3-year process that I'm shrinking into 30 seconds, and went out to bid and asked, we won the bid to build them a full microgrid to service their industrial park. And the cool thing is once this is online, about this time next year, we're already getting packages coming in from the processors who are ready to build and construct the processing plants that before the answer was, sorry, we can't support that. And the microgrid we've designed here is both generation, so the engines are going to be here in this powerhouse with a very large battery. We're going to put a brand new substation in, and then down this way about a mile off the screen is a wastewater treatment plant where we'll co-locate 15 megawatts of solar. And it's the city's wastewater treatment plant. We're going to raise the solar right up above it. And so this project's really fun because 80% of the power will be renewable from the solar and the batteries. And then only 20% is the natural gas engines. And also we have a landfill that has renewable gas right up in this area where we'll, in 2 or 3 years from now, be bringing down the renewable gas to make the whole thing green and sustainable. We're also putting in the new wires and poles. We will interconnect with PG&E, though, as a backup and to be able to use it as a revenue stream to bid the extra energy into the local utility. So, this opened up a lot of doors it solved a lot of problems. It's allowing the growth that the city wanted, and it's allowing the vegetable processors to come in there and feel secure about the power that they're going to get, and that it's not going to go out and cost them millions of dollars worth of lost lettuce or Brussels sprouts or whatever it is that they're processing. Now here in Mojave, I can understand that nobody's processing vegetables, but the quality of power in order to be testing and launching and all the very sensitive equipment that's working here, it's even worse because lives are at stake, not just money. So I think being able to provide a reliable power source for the airport and for the tenants is something that if y'all are interested in is definitely what we're here to talk about today. Next slide. Those are all of our projects that I wanted to talk about today. So do you have any questions?
A million.
A million. Fire away.
I think one of your comments, I was going to ask, what's renewable gas?
So biogas, it is taking an anaerobic digester and taking a cow poop and processing it out, the methane, and using that gas. So it
probably not much around here.
There's not much. It is being injected into our gas pipelines in the state of California, and it's sort of an exchange of whether you're using natural gas or renewable gas. But there's more of it being brought online.
If I could,
Yeah.
say, in Kern County, there are two coming up real quickly, and another scheduled biofuel renewable diesel plants that are coming up. And those
are sourced from French fry oil and all those products, plus a plant-based material that breaks down into a biofuel. They can all be blended and mixed in different forms. So there's a lot of sources of renewable gas coming in the future, including from
Landfills.
Landfills, yeah.
Well, during the last economic development, Eastern Kern County Economic Development, Cal City is looking at doing that because of their cannabis industries. There's a lot of waste products, and they're looking for a digester. And so that may be a very big source right there.
Yes.
As you can see, Mojave, we got windmills, solar panels everywhere. Now, is your system going to be self-contained that you're going to provide that? Or are you going to integrate any of the panels and windmills in the area?
It would be all new builds, and also power that would stay here for the purposes of Mojave.
So what do you see, solar panels, windmills, I mean, we got everything here. I mean, I know the gas thing is kind of a little different than Mojave, but what do you see kind of as the amount of panels and windmills you'd need to integrate?
The amount, so at first I thought that your load was going to be really big. I don't know why. I just thought it was a big airport, big place, doing a lot of cool stuff. So that must be a big load. It's actually not as big as I anticipated. And you know, the Gonzales project, for example, that is going to serve 30 million kilowatt hours a year with a really variable load with the way that these ag processors follow. So nothing on the scale of that size would be needed to serve the airport. The airport doesn't even, the data I've looked at, and I do believe I'm missing some, is under 1 million. 30 million to 1 million. I mean, we're talking of small, modest solar. I always advocate for building the most solar you can because we can put it in a battery, get us through the night, and lean on the engines as little as possible because not only is it, you know, not green to begin with, it's the most expensive maintenance to maintain the engines. They're going to cost more and to run them than the solar. That's the cost is very low once you install.
Question in regards to the batteries. So a part of what we're looking to expand into in our power needs is going to necessitate a potentially off-hour, very high magnitude, sudden, short duration burst of energy needs. What kind of capabilities, limitations can you speak to on the batteries?
Yeah, so during the day, solar can provide that kind of power quality. Certainly at night or without the solar, you really do need a battery because an engine has about a 15-second spool-up time, which is not sufficient. The batteries will provide sub-cycle response time, and a lot of times we'll install like a tasteful. It's a 30-minute battery because all of those spikes, the 30 minutes, it's not all at the same time. It's oftentimes 15 seconds at a time. Battery gets refilled, and it's almost always held at that 30-minute level of capability, and it gets tapped here and there as those spikes come through the night or through the day. And we have a simulator that will run all of your loads through. And if you a lot of times when we're working with a customer, the load isn't there yet because maybe there's some development coming, a new customer that's coming that's going to have different types of load demands. And so we do write forecasted loads. We'll do our best to forecast the load, put it through our simulator. And the simulator will give us an output of what kind, how much solar, how long of a battery is needed. I don't think a 30-minute battery would be what we'd want here. We want something to help us get through the night because we have a lot of room to build solar. At least I'm assuming. Seems like a lot of room. So, but I think to answer that question, my best thing is you're absolutely right that a battery is what's needed to get you those bursts and those peaks of energy that come out of the blue, out of nowhere. And it'll meet that demand, no problem. Thank you.
How does this system integrate into the existing power infrastructure? In other words, I think Edison's a provider for everybody out here now. Is your system inserted between the two? And basically, we or you, whoever, become the power provider for everyone here? How does it all Or you just, is it just the sum of the totals you sell back to Edison, and or how does it?
So it can go both ways. So in the event of like a single customer behind the meter in Taylor Farms, for example, they're connected to PG&E and we provide a third of their load. PG&E basically just, to them, it looks like they just got a third smaller, right? And they have a PPA with us. They still get the other 2/3 of their load still from PG&E, and they pay that bill. I think in a holistic campus approach, like here for the airport, it would be most likely what we recommend would be to build a system that fully services 100% of the load, and that means we would physically connect new wires and poles around the airport to each of the end users, and that would be incorporated into the CapEx and the cost.
So you physically connect new wires. That's kind of what I'm getting at. What happens to, and
the old wires are, the utility can keep the old wires connected there, or they can remove them. But they wouldn't be needed. The backup, the way that the facility would have backup is that the microgrid would be connected
right.
Physically to the utility through an interconnection. Right. And so the microgrid would draw power if and when needed from Edison. And that way, our users are physically just connected to the microgrid.
So that would be a whole new infrastructure, then new meters.
Yes.
Clear up to the customers.
Yes, and that would all be included in the proposal as the bid for the microgrid.
So then we or you, whoever's doing this, does that get involved with billing? In other words, if let's say we own it.
Okay.
Now Mojave or Spaceport's going to bill the customers for their power. Yes. We're going to set their rates, or probably PUC gets involved, but we're going to actually be billing the customers, and they're going to be paying directly to us, or.
So I think you would form an LLC type thing for the airport that would be your electric purveyor. You'd be a purveyor of power, and so if you owned it, then you could bill based on usage to each of the customers a set amount. You would buy it from us wholesale and then sell it to them at a retail price.
I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just trying to understand.
That's what we're doing in Gonzales. So we sell it wholesale to the city of Gonzales. They sell it to the retail customers at an additional 5 or 6 cents, and that covers a bunch of their costs and overhead. But another option is for CONCENTRIC to own it, and we have set up our own LLC, and we would happily be able to, sell to have an agreement with every one of the end users and sell the power to them, and the airport doesn't have to.
Yeah, I'm thinking, do we want to be a power company?
Well, I have a question. Can we sell power? Can we do that legally?
Yeah, I don't know if you can or not. I'd have to look at it. We're not, the airport districts have specific purposes, and unlike cities that can be municipal providers, we don't have that specific statutory power. I don't know if that would be considered as part of the inherent powers necessary to carry out the purposes of an airport, but it could be.
Yes, that's true too.
So far, we've had the city was able to, get that power, and we've been working with water districts who have special ability as well to do that. But yes, I don't know regulatory-wise if airports can do it. I just maybe it's something they could, but it might be about it.
No, it's easy enough to look into.
Yeah.
So regardless, we're pretty flexible to go either way. I mean, our main concern is to make sure your power requirements are taken care of and take the worry out of it as well. And as she said, it will be connected to utility between you and them. So if they have a brownout in an event where they're, thieving from one another trying to keep the grid alive, and they throw you some bad power, that's going to come to us. We're your firewall. So if you get dirty power, we will absorb it. We will manage it. It won't hit you. So that's another thing. We become kind of your electric.
It'd be interesting to know what the value of that is to our I guess our bigger tenants, probably y'all tenants. I'm a native here, and I put solar on many, many years ago. Actually, our power is very reliable here, extremely. And,
at the airport too?
I can't speak to that because I know they're on different nodes or whatever, but I mean, my whole lifespan here, and it's rare to have a power outage. They happen, but
That's great.
rare.
But I would be curious to follow up on the quality of power with sensitive instrumentations.
Yeah.
With
Exactly.
customers.
In other words, is that
Yes.
a real big selling point? Or, yeah, it's a nice to have, but we have our own. We deal with it now, and we're happy with how we deal. Anyway,
We see,
Lot of questions.
from a value proposition standpoint, we've kind of see the gamut. Some people come to us and they are this price. They want the lowest price, and they're boxed in for whatever reason, paying 28 cents a kilowatt hour. And I get it, the price is really out of whack for them. I don't think the price here is that bad. And then others who are trying to meet sustainability goals, their corporate goals that have been put, tamped down from higher, and they have got to come up with some other type of.
they can take advantage of that, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I know what you're saying. I'm not sure how it works, but
absolutely. They can go back up the chain, and say, we are now using this much green power. We're on a microgrid, and it can check off sustainability goals that corporate sets out.
okay.
And that's a nice to have for most of the folks we've been working with. And then really the third is, like I said with the ag, it's just the reliable power and making sure that they're not going to have a couple hours out and lose all their products.
Sure.
The other thing about price that Fred touched on is so unpredictable, and businesses don't love to have a line item in their expenses that can double it from one year to the next without any control. And when Concentric signs an agreement with end users, it's a 2% escalator for 30 years, and you can count on it. So it's predictable.
Excuse me, Bill or Bob, do either one of you have any questions?
No.
Yeah, okay. I just turned
Hang on,
my mic
Bill.
on.
Hang on, Bill. Bob's speaking.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
I've also been a resident here for 25 years, and since before the deregulation happened, and the power's been extremely reliable, and the amount of power generation in this area has grown probably tenfold in the last 10 years. I mean, we're embedded in an ocean of solar panels now, in both north, south, and west of us. So I think brownouts are highly unlikely. And I think that putting in the infrastructure to redundantly grid up all our existing tenants, probably, I mean, my gut opinion is it's not practical, because we already have that electrical power distribution infrastructure to all our tenants, but we do have a lot of undeveloped land on the other side of the field, like where the rocket test sites are, and maybe something like this would make sense for an expansion area rather than run power, a large amount of power out there. If you could generate a fair amount and then still grid tie it for some reliability, there might be a cause to do that if there's a lot of growth on the north side of the airport someday.
Yeah, that's a great idea. If the current tenants are, being served well, then building it for the future growth.
Bill?
Yeah, I've been around here for a few years too, and I have solar in my roof. I've had it for in fact, I just had the whole system renewed free by the vendor the other day. I think we should continue to look at this. I've been reading a lot about this microgrid thing. This is the way things are going. And just because we have an existing system doesn't mean we can have a much improved. I've really been impressed by the presentation here today. I think we need to keep looking into it.
From what I recall, I'm going to guess this is probably 6-8 years ago, we made a significant infrastructure improvement from the corner here to the rocket site with water, significant power, and high-speed internet. So I know there's some infrastructure in place there. I don't know what tenants are taking advantage of it, if they're tied into it or not. I know that there's a point over there that it terminates, and I don't know more than that. It's just a comment I wanted to make.
Okay.
But the infrastructure's in there.
I think,
Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say this might be an opportunity for Todd to have another one of his little meetings with the tenants around here. Maybe you folks could come in and do a little explaining to them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. Actually, that is the next step. We know, I say we, I know in my conversations with folks from Concentric, the conversation with the tenants was brought up, and we discussed and kind of debated back and forth. Who do we talk to? Do we go talk to the tenants first, and then go talk to the board? Or I wanted to come tell the board about this first before we went and told the tenants, because that way, if any board members are asked by the tenants about this, you all already know what is going on, what we're talking about. But yes, that's the plan. I'm gonna be scheduling another meeting with the tenants, and this will be the topic.
Good.
Thank you.
I think what attracts me the most is just being able to control our power bill moving forward. Again, you don't know what it's going to be next year. I've cut down on my location and watched the bill triple. And when does it stop? So.
There's not a whole lot that can be done other than coming up with a whole other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The folders that I handed out there, like I said, we're going to go through 44 slides and do a smooth review or something. If you'll go to the back, you'll see some supportive information in there. One is on Edison and kind of on their price escalator, what's happened over the last 10, 20 years. And also, just recently, what's on their website right now, showing what your usage rate is and what that percentage is. And, during our investigation, our idea was to talk with you, and if there's interest, we would just like an understanding as we go forward and talk with tenants and do more of an exploratory to kind of find out all these things. We don't know. I mean, we're just doing preliminary right now. So, but if we can dig in, we can really get some bona fides as to what the requirements are, what your actual costs are. We did get access to some of your meters, but we didn't dig in real deep and do a deep analysis. We just wanted to do a cursory, so we kind of knew. We're talking about 1 megawatt or 20 megawatts, so we kind of know where we are. But now we need to kind of dig in a little bit deeper and talk to your tenants, and then we can really understand what your load is. And then we can show you what you're paying now and verify it, not anecdotally, but verify it through what you get through Edison. And then show you what it would be with your own microgrid and those costs and savings, and also the scalability factor. If you are going to develop to the north, if you are going to bring in some bigger tenants that are going to be really power hungry, then you're really going to be over the barrel utility, even though they seem to be, relatively, good and stable and no blackouts or brownouts. As you grow, it'll be difficult for them to support that because nobody's building big infrastructure with utilities. Microgrids are small and nimble and can grow and expand, and that's what some of our clients are talking about. Yeah, take care of my needs now, but make it scalable so I can develop the rest of this property in the future, and I can be in control of that. Don't have to be be held captive by PG&E or Southern California Edison who says, I'll get to you in 5 to 7 years. That doesn't help you in your growth plan. We want to kind of empower you to be able to do that yourself.
Yeah, I didn't mention that is Gonzalez's growth plan. So we talked about the one third, or that where all those facilities are, those big 5, and they want to build more and then brownfield. There's actually 2 more plots of land just to the south, equal in size, that are intended to be in the next 10 years, equal in build out. So they want to finish part 1 and then do a part 2 and a part 3. And all of it will be phased with the microgrid. So they won't have any limitations at that point to be able to see that happen in their community.
I got a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm not understanding the concern about power and future growth and all that. Our major export in this part of Kern County is electrical energy. like I said, we've grown like by a factor of like 10 in our solar and wind here in this, just right, across the street from this airport. And the limiting factor was large scale substations and things to be able to export the energy. They actually have, a lot of the wind turbines have had to modulate their output and shut down because the grid didn't have the capacity 10, 15 years ago. And Edison has put in enormous amounts more, which has allowed the growth of what's there. If our concern is that we want to be good, environmental stewards, set a good example, be green, we already are, because our energy is coming out of those solar panels in this region. There's enough power in this region, solar and wind, that's you can run LA on it. So investing in a small scale thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me unless it's for, maybe some of our tenants. It would make sense for them if they need absolute reliability and a backup to add like battery backup or generator, gas generator capability, like, I don't know, maybe this wind tunnel or something is something where they, want some guarantee of not losing power during runs or something. But I'm not convinced of the need. It doesn't seem like a good fit for us.
Well,
I'm all for renewable energy. I've had a 10 kilowatt wind turbine on my residence in Tehachapi, and was one of the first early adopters of it. So I'm quite familiar with, buying into this and operating my own, selling back to Edison, et cetera.
It seems to me like the main purpose of what we're talking about here is not supplying electricity. We're talking about managing it. That's the whole purpose of microgrids, is to manage what we've got. Is that correct, folks?
Yes, that is partially correct from my perspective, Bill. I have a couple things. Number one, it's been my understanding that all the electricity that's generated by the wind turbines across the street out here, that's being all shipped down to Los Angeles.
Well, it goes into the state grid. It's not, but it's going to the larger areas. You're right there.
Based on my limited knowledge of renewable power, I think the one thing that a microgrid does for us in particular is allows us to have or hold on to the electricity that we generate, and at the same time, if we are generating more than we need, we can sell that electricity to other parties, if you will. And again, they may or may not be capable for us to do that from an organizational standpoint. That's when we would have to allow the folks at CONCENTRIC to manage that aspect of it, because we may not be able to sell electricity. At the same time, that would provide a limited amount of additional revenue and reduced prices. And like Fred said too, we're still in the exploratory stage. Director Morgan might be exactly right. This may not be a good fit at all for Mojave, but I think it's time. I think it's worth continuing to look into, and unless the board tells me otherwise, we'll continue exploring it.
Yeah, I think so. Scott has to answer a couple questions to look at an aspect that I'm interested in. We can sell power. The controls rates, to me it kind of comes down to the financial numbers. Does it make sense? I'd like to hear more.
Again, I like that Mojave Airport would be self-sufficient then, and it's kind of showing, okay, the future happens here. 17 years ago, we went into space. Now, this is how Mojave's generating electricity. So it's kind of it gives it the kind of that, this is the future vibe to Mojave. And You know, that's my opinion.
I agree with you, Chuck.
Director of origination.
Okay.
So, accused of bringing this on, and we appreciate you guys taking the opportunity to listen to what we have to offer. But in originating this, in my conversations with the county, with Lorelei, with Fern EDC, with Karina, they all indicated there's a need for reliable power. And that's what really started the ball rolling. You don't have the data or anything to back that up, and my career is like in Project Trust. All others bring data, so I apologize for not having that, but those comments from the county, from our economic development, all indicated that there were power issues here. Our understanding has always been that the solar and the wind generated here went to Los Angeles, and the community got sold basically dirty power back from Edison. Got what you got. And the need that indicates the safety issue, and safety is everything in our business, was a necessary component of powering this campus. The reliable, 100% reliable power was primary. Now, when I talk to customers throughout the state, CEOs, presidents, their first initial comment is, can you guarantee we need reliable power? Every indication. Their second comment was about pricing. And it continues to lead in that direction. At Tasteful Selections, we saw some photos of Tasteful Selections. They were hurting due to the power situation, but when you looked at the cost, it's 40% less with this microgrid. They're paying 40% less on what they were paying for cheap. So there's significant savings involved in this. And then the third factor is, the future is renewable energy. And that's, there's investment tax credits for being in renewables and other aspects of that. The other secret here is there's a large number of businesses that are looking at eastern Kern County to develop for manufacturing, for distribution, for things that are holding them back and holding most new businesses coming into Kern County in general is reliable power. So to develop this, to help develop this community, not only the airport, there's going to be huge growth coming forward if I reliable power.
So this is just a report item. So it's not an action item for the board.
No.
And Todd is, as CEO, he's got free reign to do what's in the best interest of the district. So unless the board tells him no, I think, it's his choice if he wants to move forward with
I'd like
investigation.
to know more just for personally understanding how it works. There may be possible benefits there. I kind of agree with Bob. I'm not sure it's going to be a great fit for us, but I'd like to know.
Yep, all of that can be investigated.
Thank you for having us, and we'll continue to answer any questions and try to figure this out with you together, because we don't for sure know either. So.
First step.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Bill or Bob, did you have any other comments? Oops. Sorry.
None here.
All right.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it greatly. That concludes my report. I'll be glad to try to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt here?
Matt is absent today. The two things that he in particular wanted to report on was the fact that the restriping of the runway has been completed, and also the rewiring of the lighting for taxiway, the completion of the taxiway Charlie project has been completed. The one thing that has not been done is I made a very specific request. I wanted the tetrahedron painted, and the best of my viewing capability from office, It did not look like it was repainted, so I'm gonna go out and take a look at that this afternoon. And if it's not repainted, I'm not very happy about that because that was something.
Make yourself.
That was really a thorn in my side. It was true. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. We don't have any board committees, board of directors. Have any comments? Bill? Bob?
I'm good.
All right, and then B. Sorry, go ahead.
Good.
Oh, okay. We'll move into closed session.
Public comment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I always miss that. Public comment. Anyone out there? All right. Now we'll move into closed session. Thank you. Let's see here.